It has been 1 week since the release of the DJI Pocket 2, and ever since I used it and tested it to bring you this 1 week in with the DJI Pocket 2. Right after this word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Restream. Use Restream to maximize your live streaming reach by live streaming on multiple platforms simultaneously. Click the link in the description to learn more and get a $10 Restream credit. In this review, we are going to focus on the DJI Pocket 2 itself. So no fancy underwater cases, control stick or creator combos. If we take a look at the DJI Pocket specs, the camera comes with a 1/1.7 inch sensor, which is capable to recording up to 4K 60 frames per second. This is possible due to its 16 megapixel sensor, or how DJI calls it, its 64 megapixel sensor. More about this later in the review. Furthermore, this sensor is capable of recording HDR video and has a high quality mode. More to that also later in the review. If we then take a look at the lens features a focal length of about 20 millimeters and an aperture of f1.8. Even though f1.8 sounds really impressive, don't expect the bokeh to be anything like an f1.8 on a full frame sensor. That's simply not possible due to the small size of the Pocket's sensor. Moving on, let's talk about the camera modes of the DJI Pocket 2. As already mentioned, the camera comes in two modes, one of which is the high quality mode and the other one is the battery saver mode. The main difference between those two modes is that the high quality mode allows you to record in a higher bitrate than in the battery saver mode. But as the name already suggests, in the high quality mode your battery life will be way shorter than in the battery saver mode. Furthermore, in the high quality mode you are only capable of recording 4K 30 frames a second, while in the battery saver mode you are able to record 4K 60. Also in the high quality mode there is no active track available. That feature is only available in the battery saver mode. The footage you are currently seeing was shot in the high quality mode, and if I switch over to the battery saver mode, we at first won't notice much, but if we punch in and zoom in a bit, we will see that in the battery saver mode there is a lot more noise going on than in high quality mode. When I was doing my testings between the high quality mode and the battery saver mode, other than the noise, which was more noticeable, I haven't really found something which would be a deal breaker to not use battery saver mode, especially because only in battery saver mode you are able to do 4K 60, and I like to do 4K 60 for the simple reason, if there is something which is pretty epic, I can slow down to 50% and still have 30 frames a second in case I'm going for a 30 frames a second timeline. So when it comes to the general video performance of the DJI Pocket, I have to say this is a super powerful small 4K camera which is gimbal stabilized, and therefore for its target demographic, one of the perfect cameras out there. The video overall looks super crisp, and for a $300 4K gimbal stabilized action cam, there isn't really space to complain. That is, as long as you have enough lights in your scene. When it gets darker, the video performance is degrading, especially in battery saver mode where the noise will be more apparent. However, if we take away all the light and we end up in a night scene, the DJI Pocket 2 is doing surprisingly good. Sure, the picture is far away from being super crisp and the noise is noticeable. However, it is still good enough so you could do night vlogs with this camera and have an okay video. Sure, due to the size of its sensor, it is far away from the best nighttime performance I've ever seen. However, it is enough to do a vlog at night and not have a total mess when it comes to the picture. Speaking of nighttime video, if you're interested in 6 minutes of nighttime sample footage, the video to that is linked up there in the info card right now. If I would have to choose a single thing I'm most impressed with the DJI Pocket 2, it would be audio performance. Let me give you an example why. The DJI Pocket 2 is rocking a total of 4 microphones, and those can be used in 3 different modes. The mode we are currently in is the all-around mode, so you hear all 4 microphones activated at the same time. The second audio mode of the DJI Pocket 2 is the front-only mode. In this mode, only the microphone in direction of the lens is picking up audio, so if I turn around the camera, you will not hear me that well anymore. But there is the third mode, which fixes this by activating the front and back microphone. So if you're vlogging, you can vlog to the camera, then turn around and you will be still hearable by the camera. This is a pretty cool feature. Back to the studio. And we're back in the studio. And as I mentioned, the audio quality of this device is really what surprised me most. Especially the 4-microphone all-around audio recording is awesome. I really love how rich the audio recording is, and you just hear your surroundings. And also, the sound is pretty crisp in my opinion. So why don't we move on from audio to photo capabilities, because as we mentioned before, this DJI Pocket 2 is rocking a 64 megapixel sensor. So let's see what this is about. So image quality with the DJI Pocket 2 sensor is a double-edged sword. On one hand, if you shoot compressed JPEGs, the quality really isn't that good and you might be better off just using your smartphone. And if you want to see what I mean by that, there's a link up in the info card where we went into a deep dive of the image quality of compressed JPEGs. On the other hand, if you use the DJI Pocket 2 64 quad-Bayer sensor to shoot raw images, those images are actually pretty decent, and for a $300 gimbal stabilized action video camera, actually pretty good. But here's the thing, if you are someone who takes their 4K video camera to shoot photos, you're most likely also a person who likes to just upload those photos from your smartphone to social media. In this case, you most likely go with JPEGs. And in that case, as we already mentioned, take your smartphone. It's better. And on the other hand, if you're someone who has the time, resources, skills, and especially storage to edit raw photos, because every raw photo is over 100 megabytes in size, you most likely don't use a 4K gimbal stabilized video camera to shoot stills photos. Most likely you already have a stills camera. And due to its most likely bigger sensor size than this 1/1.7-inch sensor, those photos might be already better than the photos this camera shoots. Therefore, I have to admit that the raw image performance of the DJI Pocket is impressive given its $300 price tag. However, I don't see who's using that other than like me, who is testing it to review it. If we are speaking about picture quality, we of course have to speak about the sensor. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the DJI Pocket 2 has a 64 megapixel sensor. So the thing with that claim is the following. The actual sensor of the DJI Pocket 2 is a 16 megapixel sensor and not a 64. Don't get me wrong, 16 is fine, but it's not a true 64 megapixel sensor. What it is a so-called quad-Bayer sensor, which means every pixel on the 16 megapixel sensor is divided in 4 sections, which then totals out in a 64 megapixel quad-Bayer sensor. So the photos you shoot, they have a pixel count of a 64 megapixel sensor. And the problem I personally have with that is many people go for, oh yeah, that thing has a 64 megapixel sensor. Oh, that thing has a 12 megapixel sensor. Yeah, 64 must be better. And unfortunately, that's not true. And DJI on its website isn't really helping with that claim. So let's talk about the gimbal performance of the DJI Pocket 2. If DJI has learned something over the past years, it's how to build gimbals and drones. And let's be honest, the DJI Pocket 2, it is basically a drone without wings. So as it was to be expected, the DJI Pocket 2 gimbal performs just as good as every other DJI gimbal. I never had any issues with it, and the stabilized footage is just great. So yeah, the gimbal performance of the DJI Pocket 2 is very good, and there's nothing to really complain about. Something else where there's nothing really to complain about is DJI's hybrid autofocus system. The autofocus system of the DJI Pocket 2 is really good. I never had a shot which was just out of focus and it didn't work. Yeah, there were some moments when it was like changing focus, when the focus wasn't on point, but within 1 to 2 seconds that was usually fixed. And this is a very important feature, in my opinion, towards cameras in that form factor, which, let's be honest, will be used for vlogging. If you're vlogging, the last thing you really want to be worried about is if you or your subject is in focus, especially when the monitor you could monitor sharpness is that small. Speaking of monitoring and controls, a nice thing about the DJI Pocket 2 is you can completely control the camera with on-device controls. So while you can use your smartphone to use the DJI Mimo app to control the camera, and with the Do It All handle you can even do that wirelessly, it is not needed. Every feature can be reached with the touchscreen and everything can be controlled with the device itself. So bottom line then, the DJI Pocket 2 is an impressive 4K gimbal stabilized action camera with some fancy bells and whistles. Given its $300 price tag in the base package, there's really not much you can complain about because it is a solid camera, it shoots in 4K 60, it has great sound, autofocus is on point, so there's not really much you can complain. Additionally, this device can be upgraded with modifications such as the Do It All handle, which allows you to control it wirelessly or directly live stream to the internet. So here are a few things I really do like about the camera and some things I really don't. First of all, DJI did a great job of bringing their know-how of how to build gimbals into this small form factor. The gimbal is awesome and performs well under almost all conditions. Second, as I mentioned, the fact that I can control this device with on-device controls is a big plus, because today this isn't always for granted that you can control a device without using an app. And I really like the fact I can. Also, the 4K video with up to 60 frames a second for this device with a price tag of $300 is just nothing you can complain about. The videos are crisp and this is what matters. And the last thing which I really like about the DJI Pocket 2 is its audio capability. As I said, the audio surprised me most about this device. And in my opinion, audio is at least as important as a 4K video image. So this is what I like about the camera. Now, all you DJI fanboys, I'm sorry. Here is what I really hate about this camera. The thing I really hate most about this camera is how they try to sell it. They try to push the 64 megapixel sensor, even though we talked about that it really isn't a 64 megapixel sensor. I can understand from a marketing standpoint why you do this, but as I said, it's 16 megapixel quad Bayer, and this is what it is. It's not a true 64 megapixel sensor, and the image quality shows that. The second thing I really don't like about this camera is that while you can control it without an app, if you want to use the app and the camera, you have to first log in into your personal DJI account, then register the camera on your account before you can use it. And there's absolutely no need why you have to do this. I mean, this is not a drone. I can understand when DJI would do this with drones, because drones in many countries need registration, and I could totally understand that. That said, fun fact, with my DJI Mavic 2 Pro, I did not have to register anything. So why the heck do I have to register that? Sure, I can understand that for marketing purposes and all that, it's awesome to have every device registered to a personal account. But guys, there's no need. Give me a skip button, please. So yeah, those are the two things I hate. And to be honest, both those things have nothing to do with the hardware. The hardware, given its $300 price tag, is awesome. So there you have it. A great 4K gimbal stabilized camera, which I am sure will be a hot item under this year's Christmas trees. Speaking of Christmas trees, if you are a streamer or your friend or girlfriend is a streamer, why don't you upgrade them to a Restream account to maximize their reach on online live streaming. Restream allows you to stream simultaneously to multiple live streaming destinations at once, so you can reach the maximum amount of people when you go live. So click the link in the video description below to learn how Restream can help you with your live streaming needs and get a $10 Restream credit. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. Over there is a playlist of all the other DJI Pocket 2 videos we did on this channel. Yeah, there are a few. We did some interesting things and some stupid things. Definitely go check that out. And other than that, thanks for liking this video. If you like the content, also feel free to subscribe, become a member, and I will see you at the next video, which is hopefully one of those videos there in the DJI Pocket 2 playlist. I'm Greeny, this is Greenbox. Bye!